It's Erik Janeczko, and I want to welcome all of you to the next installment of the Maximum Performance webinar series. This series was launched in October of 2012 with the intention of developing and bringing together a community of folks who are dedicated to perfecting and refining their ability to perform as a top-notch mortgage professional. Today's program is a special edition program joined by the folks from Avantus Credit Solutions. So Maximum Acceleration and Avantus Credit Solutions are proud to present the Partner Power Up program. I'm going to share with you some key tools and strategies to help you really win in the spring purchase season. I'm going to be joined eventually by Mr. Ben DeRoche, who's a senior account exec with Avantus, who's going to be helping with answering some of the questions that you have about their programs and tools. I'm going to be helping you understand how to position those tools as a front-end resource that will help you significantly improve the quality of relationships and the volume of leads that you receive from business development partners like realtors. I think I heard some background noise. Ben, are you on the line with us again where we can actually hear you this time? All right, so as I move through the program, there are some technical background difficulties we've been having. I'm not exactly sure why we're not able to hear Ben, but I'm not up to this point. So I'm going to keep right on moving with the program. Ben or Lewis, if you guys could, there's also in the Tools menu under the File button in the control panel, there's a customer service phone number for the GoToWebinar platform folks, where they can give you try and help you figure out what's going on with the audio issues and why we're not able to actually hear you. If you guys wouldn't mind, take a quick jump at reaching out to those folks. I'm going to go ahead and move through this program as best I can, and we'll go from there. So, as we get started with this program, I didn't always look as suave or debonair as I always did. You know, the benefit of a great marketing person is they can make you look really good regardless of how silly you really are. Well, part of my history in the mortgage industry is I got into business in 1996. I got started as a junior loan officer for a guy who was doing a pretty high volume as a loan officer. He actually had I was his second junior loan officer. He had 2 full-time processors and a full-time junior loan officer before he hired me. When I got started in the business, you know, I worked for a guy who was doing on average around 40 or so closings a month as a loan officer, a top-notch originator in his field. That guy had one problem, though, and that his business was extremely refinance-based. Probably 95% of what he did was refinance business. So in 1997, we hit one of those flukes in the market where we lost about 400 basis points in pricing. Rates shot up about 1.5 points, and literally in less than a week, 43 of our 66 loans disappeared from the pipeline, vaporized into thin air, because my first boss, that loan officer, was one of those guys who also had a habit of waiting until the last minute to lock his loans, trying to maximize profits on those deals. So here I am as a young guy with 8 months experience in the business, who's out on the street in an environment where rates are 1.5 points higher than they'd been for most of the previous year. Refinances were completely off the table, and there was really no choice but to figure out how to go after purchase business. So after a couple of months of struggling, finally I landed a job with a company, Norwest Mortgage, that eventually became Wells Fargo. And as a result of that, I didn't really necessarily know what to do, but I'd learned early in my life that I needed to ask the question, who knows what I want to know? And, you know, I've found out that if I study the patterns and behaviors of the most successful originators I could get a look at, that I could maybe learn a few things. Well, through the course of the time, I was able to participate in some great training programs and have some opportunities to be able to basically double my business year over year consecutively, 4 years in a row. And my last 12 months originating was in 2002. I closed 237 purchase transactions. And I did this in a little rural town of about 1,000 people that happened to be about 20 miles from a military base, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. What I learned in how to build and grow strategic alliances or partnerships and how to establish those partnerships quickly and a systematic way of generating that flow of volume is what I hope to share with you today. And you know, later that translated into doing a lot of training and development and getting into starting the Maximum Acceleration coaching program, which I'll tell you about a little bit more later today. So we all know that the market has had a spike. We all know that there's been some significant changes in the market in the last year or so. We all know that housing affordability has taken a bit of a hit as interest rates spiked, right? But what does that really mean for homeowners? And what does that really mean for our buyer opportunities? Well, the practical reality is, by all intents and purposes, we're still looking at one of the best housing opportunities of literally the last 80 years, and that's based on the combination of what it costs the average American family to buy the average American home. Now, housing affordability had deteriorated a little bit late last year, but the reality is we're still dealing with some of the best that we've experienced in years. I mean, for example, if you looked at the average 30-year history of average long-term interest rates all the way back to 1790, you'd recognize that there's really only been about 5 periods in history in the last 220 years. There's only really been 3 major periods of time where interest rates were at or below 5% for long-term rates. So the reality is we're still dealing with the best of the best of the best housing affordability. I mean, just think about the perspective of how much house can you buy at 6.5% versus how much house can you buy at 4.5%. I mean, I did a recent study with one of my coaching clients, and we realized that at 4.5%, a $2,500 a month principal and interest payment was a $523,000 loan. At 6.5% interest rate, that $2,500 mortgage payment, principal and interest, is only a $407,000 loan. So in other words, it's $116,000 more house for the same monthly payment. What that really means is that there is a huge opportunity to help buyers and be able to increase their buying power. And there's a whole lot of people out there in the world who are able to benefit from buying a home right now who may not even be aware of it. So the next question then is, how do we find them? How do we reach them? Well, one of the best ways that we do that is by working with business development partners like realtors and talking with realtors about how we can partner together with them to create a better result. I mean, there's an old Jewish proverb that says, plans fail where there is no counsel, but succeed when counselors are many. By leveraging the strengths, assets, and abilities of us, along with the business development partners that we have the opportunity to reach out to, we can create massive growth. So what I want to share with you today is how to help create the synergy and the kind of results that turn into a 1 and 1 is 11 type of effect, and some key strategies for how to do that. Now, part of the reason I put this up on the screen, these horses, when I was growing up as a kid, I grew up obviously in central Missouri. You know, every major parade we'd have, Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving, that kind of thing, you'd have these Budweiser Clydesdales in the parade, and they're just fascinating animals. Well, in high school, I studied them a little bit. What I realized is that around the turn of the last century, in the early 1900s, there was a group of scientists that was trying to come up with a unit of weight. And you know, so what they realized is the average horse could pull about 12,000 pounds by himself. Now, if we think about teaming up with business development partners like realtors, for example, we would expect there'd be at least double the opportunity, right? But the scientists ran into one particular problem when they tried to scale up these horsepower studies. You see, 2 horses hitched together to the same load, pulling in the same direction. The record is over 104,000 pounds of pull, or roughly 8 times the results of one pulling by himself. Now, let's think about the typical loan officer-realtor relationship for just a second. I mean, you know, if it's a transactional-based relationship, you send me a deal, I'll send you a deal, and we'll keep a scorecard type of situation, working independently for our own selfish purposes, we're going to find that even, you know, if we had, you know, a realtor who's generating 15 or so leads a month for himself and a loan officer generating 15 or so leads a month for himself, you're going to end up with about 30 leads cumulative that could be shared back and forth. So what would it look like if we get those 2 working together in concert and there's that level of synergy created? Well, if the 8 times rule holds true, we're talking about the probability of generating somewhere in the neighborhood of about 120 leads aggregate. Now, right now, you might be thinking I'm totally nuts, and that may not even be remotely possible. But today, I hope to share with you some key tools and strategies that are going to allow you to realize how to create that kind of synergy with the business development partners that we have the opportunity to work with. Well, the first thing we've got to come across or understand when it comes to how do we create that kind of lead possibility, which, by the way, I want you to suppress that thought for just a moment and ask the question, okay, it may not be possible, but if it was, what would it look like? Okay? And open your mind to the possibility that there may be strategies out there that we don't know about yet or that we haven't been exposed to yet that can begin to create that kind of synergy and that kind of leverage, which we'll talk about a little bit more down the road. Well, one of the first key concepts is this whole concept of value. How do we go beyond being just the vendor on any one transaction to be really truly of greater benefit? Well, it comes back to this simple concept. I mean, value means they buy, right? They choose to use us versus our competition. So whether it's us or whether it's the realtor when they're at point of sale with a potential home buyer or home seller, often the consumers tend to look at us as a commodity or as a transactional provider or a vendor on one transaction, not realizing that there's an opportunity for us to do and be a lot more valuable to them over the long run. Now, we'll talk about that value-based concept a little bit in more detail and how we present that value to the consumer at point of sale as we go through today's program. But the basic concept or understanding here is if we're competing head-to-head with a competitor, whether it's over rate, price, fee, service quality, or any of those other one transaction level value points, there's only really two ways to balance this equation. One is to lower our costs. The other is to raise our benefit. And when we do the raise our benefit option, that's where we can create significantly more value and value that goes way beyond that one transaction. Let me give you a good example of this. Let's say I have $10,000 and I want to invest in a stock, okay? And let's say that I decide I'm going to buy 100 shares of a company that's worth $100 a share. Now, I can go to E-Trade, open a stock account, buy those 100 shares of that company for $8 a trade or $10 a trade, somewhere in there. The other option I have is I could go to a full-service investment broker like a Merrill Lynch, and likely I'm going to buy the same 100 shares of the same company for the same $10,000, but I'm likely to pay anywhere from $150 to $200 per trade for that investment. So why on earth would I pay 15 to 20 times more for the same 100 shares of the same company through a full-service advisor like a Merrill Lynch, full-service broker like a Merrill Lynch, as opposed to the alternative option of going through the E-Trade? What's the value in doing it that way? And the reason I ask that question is because partly when you're thinking about this dynamic, think about, well, what's the value of the advice worth, right? I mean, if I buy that 100 shares of that particular company, well, first of all, did I pick the right company? Second of all, did I pick the right time? I mean, we all know the rule of investment is buy low, sell high, right? Well, how do I know whether that's a good buy right now or not? So I would go maybe to that full-service investment advisor for the hope that I'm going to get the kind of advice and access to the information and the research group that they have studies the performance of these companies and can better advise me on what's a smarter investment. Now, the reason for that, though, is what if he took it one step further? What if he slowed me down enough to ask the question, well, Eric, I don't know if that's the best choice for how to spend your money. Like, for example, how are you looking on your consumer debt? Second example, how are you looking when it comes to emergency fund? I mean, let's say that $10,000 is my entire life savings, and I'd be tying it all up in that company. So if I had an unexpected financial emergency, like let's say the furnace went out of my house and I needed to replace it because of this incredibly cold winter we've been experiencing, I'd have to sell that stock at a loss. See, now that financial advisor has transformed his relationship with me from being one of a vendor on one transaction to being an advisor who's helping me make smarter choices that benefit me much more down the road. So the point I'm trying to make here is if we can focus on shifting our relationship with agents from being a vendor on one transaction, talking about how great of a job we can do getting their one deal done, and shift that to a relationship where we're a partner in their success, we're an asset to helping them do significantly more business, not just about getting their deals done, but how to help them get a lot more deals, then we become an irreplaceable asset to them, to the point where agents begin to realize that they cannot afford not to refer us every buyer they talk to, because they realize it costs them money to not introduce us to every buyer they're working with. So we're going to talk through over the next several minutes how to do that in a couple of detailed strategies. But it comes down to a couple of things that we've got to be clear on. One is the law of caring says people won't care how much they know until they know how much you care. Another way of thinking about that is what do people care more about, themselves or us? Until they understand why it's to their benefit to work with us, they really don't care how until they know why. But the other thing that we've got to be careful about is remember that as we go through life, we don't know what we don't know until somebody cares enough to show us. There's no way we possibly could, right? Well, it's no different for the agents. So if we help them begin to realize and understand some truths about the real estate business that they may not even be aware of, or if they are aware of, they may not necessarily be doing anything about it, and it could be literally costing them hundreds of deals. So as a result, we have this opportunity to shift our focus and our strategy to a better system and a better solution. So as we move through the rest of today's program, we're going to be talking about and working on strategies that are going to help us generate a better result. So let's go to the next step. What's the first step? So how do we do this with agents? How do we drive purchase business? How do we help agents get more deals? How do we become the asset and resource that becomes that invaluable, irreplaceable solution to the biggest challenges that they have? Well, there's 4 key conversations that we can have with our business development partners that creates the highest probability of strong results. The first one is helping them realize the value of their time. The second one is about helping them create a bank of future opportunities. The third one is how we can help them massively impact their conversion and capture ratio. And the fourth one is about how to help make sure that we're turning every deal we work into 1 or 2 additional deals. By the way, if the rest of the group of organizers and panelists, are you guys able to hear me at this point? If you guys could chat back with me and let me know if you're hearing me all right. Also, if you can help me understand whether Ben's been able to get back into the audio for the system or not. We're having some platform problems here with the GoToWebinar platform, and I'm not sure exactly if I'm being heard or not. But I'm going to continue to power on through the program until I see, okay, not hearing Ben. All right, you guys are hearing me all right. Most of you are hearing me okay. Good. Ben, if you're back online, if you want to jump in and say a few things. Okay. All right, I'm not hearing Ben at all. Not sure exactly what's going on with that. All right, we're going to keep moving right on through the program. We may have to participate. Ben may have to participate via chat, Q&A, or the rest of the Avantus panelists may be able to help with that as we move through today's program. All right, guys. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to rip right into these challenges. Some of the things we're addressing for these realtors or these the professionals that we have the opportunity to work with. I mean, the guys who are the realtors who are frontline with buyers and sellers who are working in the housing sector every day. They have challenges just like we do. They are struggling with a market that is, by all intents and purposes, stacking up to be one of the hottest real estate seasons of the most recent couple of years. These are opportunities to create and grow, substantially stronger relationships or partnerships with these agents, helping them get through. So what are the challenges your agents are facing? Well, one of the biggest things that they're struggling with right now is in a hotly contested market where buyers are having to make multiple offers. How many agents are spending way too much time with buyers who really aren't ready to buy yet? And what happens if a buyer gets ahead of the game and they start looking for property before they've finished getting an accurate and thorough pre-approval review from a qualified loan officer? Well, the reality is those buyers are likely going to get discouraged because they're going to make offers on properties that are not even going to be looked at. They're going to be rejected. And after doing that a couple of times, they get so discouraged that buyers disappear and they get out of the game completely. So the first concept is this value of time. And how you do this with an agent and how you communicate this to an agent is from the perspective of this value time conversation. So let's say I'm a loan officer who's approaching an agent, and I've developed a little bit of a rapport with this agent. I'm starting to talk to them about how I can be the partner that's going to help them do significantly more deals. Well, one of the first things I want to communicate to that agent is this whole concept of the value of their time. So in a market like we're in right now, Mr. Agent, one of the things we have to realize is that lending 80 degrees different than it was 6 or 7 years ago. So buyers who haven't bought a home in the last 8 years, anybody who hasn't bought a home since 2007 is going to experience a completely different world. And the reality is, 7, 8 years ago, 8 out of 10 buyers, anybody who could pretty much fog a mirror could get a loan. Today, it's exact opposite. Probably only 1 or 2 out of 10 are really ready to buy now. Now, there are, of course, 2 to 4 out of 10 who could get ready in 6 to 12 months with the right kind of support and guidance, and there's probably 3 or 4 who are 12 months or longer out because of major qualifying hurdles. So one thing that I can do for you, Mr. Agent, that's going to help you be tremendously more efficient on the front end and make sure that you're only spending time with buyers who are really 100% ready to buy is let us do the filtering for you. Let us work with as early in the contact relationship as we can, introduce us to those buyers so we can help identify who is ready to go. And let's go as aggressively as we can towards a fully pre-approved and fully documented pre-approval review, to the extent if you have this lending capability, all the way through to underwriting pre-approval, so that we then are putting those buyers in a position to be highly competitive when they find the property they're looking for. And let's get that qualification piece handled before you spend any time showing them property, because likelihood is they're going to, they're going to get all excited about one particular property. They can't get it because they're not ready to be competitive at offer, and they're going to lose out and get discouraged. So let's avoid that, and let's, one, find out who are the buyers that are really ready to move forward right now. And let's deal with the rest as they come. Let me, as your loan officer, work to incubate those leads. See, what happens is they kind of go into one of 4 buckets. We've got buyers who are great credit, they're easy, they're ready to go, they've got their down payment in place, their income and debt to DTI ratios are great, we've validated documentation, we've looked for the skeletons in the closet, the 2106 expenses, that kind of stuff, and we've vetted that client thoroughly. They're ready to go. They fall into the green bucket. The second is, well, they've got some hair. They've got some issues. They're squeezing it awful thin on ratios, or they've got they're marginal on credit. And if any one line item on their credit report shifts just enough that it drops their score 5 or 10 points, they'll go from qualifying to disqualifying very quickly. There's that bucket. So we need to get those buyers all the way through underwriting as fast as possible. The third bucket is the people who they're not ready yet, but their challenges to qualifying are minor, right? Maybe it's they need to wait for the divorce decree to be finalized, even though they have an agreement. Underwriting is requiring that final divorce decree before they let them go. They need a month or 2 more for that foreclosure or short sale to have aged enough that they qualify. Or maybe there's some realignment of their debt structure that would enhance their score enough to move them into a qualifying category. So we can work with those clients over time and move them from not ready to ready. And when they do get ready, Mr. Agent, I can bring those buyers back to you. At the end of the day, when we find out what bucket they fall into, then I can bring them back to you at that point. And that's one of the ways that I, as a lending partner for you, Mr. Agent, can be a valuable asset. My goal here is to be a partner in your success, helping you be more efficient, take less time per deal, and do more deals. And so only your time will be spent working on the truly approved, ready-to-buy buyers. I get to deal with everybody else, but when those maybes do become ready, now see, this is like a power tool, okay? You know, and just for example, let me share with you just this one key concept, okay? You've all heard of the concept of leverage, right? That, you know, I don't know if you've ever really thought about how leverage is created. Well, leverage is based on a simple machine or tool, the lever, right? There's 2 parts to a lever, right? The bar and the pivot point. But the problem is if I'm not using that tool correctly, what kind of results am I getting? Little to none, right? I can push down with 100 pounds of force on one side and I only get 100 pounds of lift on the other. Well, why don't I just go pick up the box and move it, right? But if I'm using leverage correctly, if I move that bar just a few feet to one side, all of a sudden 100 pounds of force will give me 1,000 pounds of lift. And that's the leverage that we can create for clients that helps them substantially grow or improve. So what are the power tools of being able to do an efficient and accurate screening and filtering of who's ready to buy now versus who's not? What are the power tools of being able to incubate a lead and effectively nurture that lead so that we can get them from not ready to ready as efficiently as possible? Well, some of the tools that Avantus provides are very unique and innovative products that allow you as an originator to be that power tool for your business development partners. For example, one of their tools or products that they offer is a system called Start My Application, which literally becomes your online mortgage loan application and credit authorization system. Literally, a realtor can refer a buyer directly to your privately branded web page that has your contact information. That buyer can begin to apply online, and one of the other really cool things about this tool is the buyer makes the initial investment. The buyer is the one who pays for that upfront credit report. You know, when was the last time as a loan officer you paid for a credit report with a buyer who didn't end up buying, right? Or who got disqualified, or, you know, I mean, how many hundreds of thousands of dollars, or I mean, how many hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars is your mortgage company spending on credit reports that never turn into closed loans? Well, what if your buyer paid for those credit reports up front? Yeah, well, if you're already an Avantus client, you've probably already figured this out. But the reality is there's two advantages to this. One is it commits the buyer, and it commits the buyer to you and the realtor who introduced that buyer to you. Secondly is it's highly value added for the consumer because it gives the consumer front-end access to their credit report and allows you to step in and give them specific guidance. But the buyer is paying for it on their own credit card, right? They're making that financial investment, which means they're taking that step forward with you, and that credit report is specific to you. It is the lender's credit report that you will use when submitting that loan to underwriting, because it is a full tri-merge credit report, and it allows the client to evaluate their information. So that takes care of the first tool, the value of time, is that front end impact and getting those buyers started right. Well, the second thing that we've got to do is recognize that what are the other big challenges that a lot of agents have? You know, when dealing in a hot market where buyers are flying off, where properties are flying off the shelves and there's 50 buyers for every one property. I know I'm exaggerating a little bit on purpose, but in that hotly contested, highly competitive type of market environment that so many of the areas of the country are experiencing right now, how easy is it for realtors to lose track of their leads? I mean, how often does a realtor, how good of a job does the average realtor do at keeping track of buyers who weren't ready to buy 30, 60, 90, 120 days ago? Well, that gives us that opportunity, like we said, with the questionable and the incubate buckets, that when buyers fall into that, we as an originator have an opportunity to incubate those leads. Again, using that power tool provided by Avantus, there are three key tools that you have access to that will help you One is what they call credit assure, which is right up front, some suggestion or guidance on how to potentially work on enhancing the score. The second is the Credit Expert Essentials and the Credit Expert 1S Simulator. Now, Ben, I don't know if you can hear me. Ben, can you try and say a couple of words real quick, just so I can see if you're able to speak?
I'm here now.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Great. So I'm introducing kind of the basics of this, but if you can help me with, if you hear me say anything, or if there's some things you'd like to share with these folks on today's program. I mean, the first thing is, like, for example, this Credit Assure. First of all, it's going to be very clear, bracket your mid FICO for the buyer, that it's going to make it real clear as to where there may be some opportunity for score improvement in each of the 3 bureaus, which is one of the really cool tools that this thing can provide for you. The second thing that it can do is it helps you identify, and then very quickly from that same first input screen, be able to jump into the Credit Essentials, which is the tool that allows you to the most cost-effective steps that the consumer could take to enhance their score, and what kind of lift that it would give them.
Mm-hmm. It's nice
beyond
because
the what-if scenario.
The credit report leads you right to that spot, so it's nice and easy to use. And then when you get there, you can learn exactly what to do right starting out from the credit report. So the lift that you get from Credit Assure describes what the potential is, and then you can go into the product in more detail by going to the website.
Absolutely. In just the interest, I mean, basically, and then of course they have a lot of you guys have the rapid rescore option, so you some guidance on what the potential score change could be, what the score improvement could be, which is going to help you as a loan officer do a better, faster, and more effective job of, instead of guessing what you need to do with that particular client to improve their FICO and enhance the credit score to put them in a better qualifying position. You have the tools that will help you, find out more specifically and exactly what the impact would be, and that's where that's why I love this tool so much. I wish I had had this the majority of my origination career. I mean, this would have saved me thousands of hours, over the course of several years, and probably would have helped me do significantly more volume, or I have every confidence it would have helped me do significantly more volume with this if I had had this simulator. I mean, it literally allows you to go in and test out scenarios and look at the potential score impact of what they could do, and gives the guidance and suggestions. The other thing I like with the way that Avantus sets this up is their system allows me to isolate and separate and unmerge the actual 3 bureaus so that I can look into the more specific detail of which ones I need to attack, which accounts show up on which bureau report, and what impact that would potentially have with the score. I mean, this is a game changer when it comes to our ability as a front-end originator to effectively advise our clients on how to win the credit game. I mean, even with we all know that the whole point of a credit report is, right, you get the whole thing of a credit score is supposed to be a measurement of financial risk, right, for the lender. And the game is played by, you get positive points for responsible credit behavior, you get negative points for irresponsible credit behavior. What most buyers don't necessarily understand, or where they need our help as an originator, is how to win the game. And it's, the more experienced originators, the longer we've been doing this business, we've learned strategies or approaches that in general help us win the credit game, or help our buyers enhance their score by playing the game smarter. But at the end of the day, it's still a guessing game. Well, what if you had a tool that allowed you to know exactly how to do it? And by the way, keep in mind, folks, that as we're going through today's program, you are more than welcome to continue to ask questions as I'm moving through things. I know I'm going through sales strategy blended with concepts and ideas of these tools. I'm going to jump back into sales strategy mode for just a little bit longer here, and in just about 5 minutes, we're going to take some Q&A. Due to some of the technical challenges or difficulties that we experienced, we're probably going to run a little bit longer. If you don't have time to hang with us all the way to the end, make sure you watch for the recording that'll be coming a little bit later this week that we're going to forward out to you that'll have the final piece of the video. Make sure you come back around, because I know Avantus has some great things they want to share with you towards the end of the program. But also, please go ahead and start posting any of the questions that you have about the information I've shared up to this point and resources or tools of how you can do this. So, and Ben's going to share a little bit more that's part of the reason Ben and some of the other team from Avantus are on the call today to be able to answer, especially if you have more technical questions about how these systems or tools work. And of course, at the end of the program, we'll also show you how to get easy access and some special offers that Avantus has for you. So that's the first two parts of the conversation. If we can show agents how we can save them a tremendous amount of time and help them focus using their time on stuff that is actually high payoff activity, stuff that will produce results, we can significantly enhance their ability to produce more profitable deals. It's doing more business in less time, right? Time allocation is the most important factor. We can't manage time. We can't add or delete hours from the clock. All we can do is use the hours that we have more efficiently, right? More effectively. So those first two opportunities, you're about halfway there when we talk about how to create 8 times results with business development partners. See, when we're being the partner in their success, the person who's helping them recognize that the time that they spend on wasted effort or time with buyers who aren't ready to buy or time with buyers who haven't gotten far enough in the process to be ready to buy, we've now enhanced their ability dramatically to do a lot more deals in the same amount of time. Now, the third part of this conversation is how do we help them capture more of the buyers that they come across their plate. I mean, the typical agent will get 1 or 2 calls a week per listing, which means if you have an average agent with 8 to 10 listings, they're getting 8 to 10 buyer inquiry calls a week. Well, how well do they manage that call, and how well can we provide an endorsement? I mean, think about it from this perspective. Agents have the challenge of, they don't follow up well. They have buyers who are desperate and desperate and disloyal because of this high intense market. And how many agents are losing buyers to listing agents who have the property because the buyer thinks they're going to get a better deal through the listing agent? And yet, the agent isn't positioning themselves effectively as an asset or resource to that buyer, and recognizing that a buyer's agent is one of the most valuable assets a buyer could have, especially in a highly competitive real estate market. And so one of the things that we need to work on with agents is helping them understand how do they like to be referred, how could they position themselves better. And it's all about credibility. I mean, imagine if this guy tried to sell you exercise equipment. How effective would he be, right? Probably not very. It's not the typical spokesman you're looking for selling a boat for exercise equipment. You look for somebody a little bit more like this, right? So how do we help our agents recognize their opportunity to position themselves more credibly up front? Well, one of the ways of doing it is demonstrating for them how they could position themselves better at point of sale, or how we could do it for them. I mean, the reality is and so we start the question or conversation by asking the basic question, how do you like to be referred? I ask an agent that. 1 out of 10 is going to have been exposed to some sort of sales training that to them about elevator pitches or 30-second commercial, or how to do a proper value presentation or positioning statement. 9 out of 10 are going to look at me completely blank stare, dumbfounded. That opens the door for me to give a demonstration of what I want to say about them that communicates their value to that buyer. So I'm going to go into a demonstration mode, and I'm going to demonstrate for that realtor how I intend to endorse them. So when I get that blank stare from that real estate agent, I'm going to say to them something to the effect of, Mr. Agent, at the end of the day, let me give you an example of the kind of endorsement I want to give of you, okay? So I'm talking to a buyer at the stage where I'm about to hand them over to the realtor, right? One of the things that I'm going to say to that buyer is, at the end of the day, Mr. Buyer, picking an agent is one of the most important assets in the home buying process. A skilled, knowledgeable, effective, full-time real estate advisor is going to be able to save you a tremendous amount of time and money as you go through the search and offer process, much more so than the typical real estate sales agent. Part of that is because they have access to a proprietary database of all of the properties available in the market, and they'll identify what you're looking for first and do the searching for you. And then if you give them the opportunity to, by empowering what's called a buyer's agency agreement, which they can explain to you, by the way, the cool thing is you don't have to pay for it, the agent can then work on your behalf as your skilled negotiator when it comes time to getting you as prepared and as competitive as possible to be successful when you find the right property and making that offer. Now, see, I do that demonstration of how to give a strong endorsement or engage of an agent, and that agent is going, wow, you do that for me? But if you guys think about it, that endorsement is based on the value. What does the buyer get from working with a knowledgeable or skilled agent? Now, there's some psychology in selling there, too, that I'm using, which we don't have time to go into in this format. But you know, the reality is that I'm positioning on it, why should my buyer talk to that agent? Now, the reason I'm demonstrating this for that agent is because I want to ask the agent to do the same in reverse. I want the agent to be telling that buyer why they should talk with me. And the way I position that is by helping the agent understand, oh, by the way, I can do that sort of an endorsement of you and give you that Bowflex guy credibility if you give me some credibility and an opportunity to speak with that buyer. Now, before I go too much further with that, there's one last piece I want to share with you guys, which is one of the most powerful assets that you have is the buyers you're already working with. Now, and this is where that fourth key conversation comes into play. We've got the opportunity to help our agents turn every deal they've got into one or two additional deals, and here's why. You know, it's all about, I mean, think about it from the example of fishing. You know, there's two ways I can catch a fish, right? I can work with a rod and reel, but there's a lot of things that could go wrong that would keep that fish in the water instead of in the boat. Or I can fish with a net. Higher probability, greater likelihood of success, bringing in a consistent weight of fish, poundage of fish for eating. If I fish with a massive scale, I got to have a team of people to bring it in, though. So how do we work in conjunction or concert with our business development partners to generate massive volume? Well, part of it is about understanding and recognizing how we ask for things. Who do we go after and how do we go after them? Every buyer we talk to knows 5 to 7 people in their close circle of influence who are already thinking about buying. How do I know that? Well, the reason I know that is because think about the statistics of it. The average American family buys every 5 to 7 years. That means 12 to 20% of the population are already thinking about buying a home. So all I have to do is ask my buyer who they know that's in a position to buy a home. Now, the reason I want to ask who instead of do, see if I ask a buyer, do you know anybody who needs a loan or needs help buying a home, that buyer's going to tell me no. They can't think of anybody. If I ask that buyer who they know, their brain is going to be triggered to respond to that specific question with a very specific answer, which is a name, right? Now, the other thing we have to think about is what drives a desire to help, and how do we get that that potential buyer we're working with or that buyer we're working with to be comfortable introducing us to their friends, family, or colleagues. Well, part of this is I've got to shift my position and I've got to shift my approach from being on the taking side to the giving side. Now, we talked about at the top of the call how powerful of a housing opportunity there is right now and how much house for the money a month a buyer can get in today's market versus the markets of the last 20 years or 30 years or 40 years. Well, the reality is, the unfortunate irony is the people who are most able to take advantage of today's market are probably the least likely to be aware of it. So when I'm talking with a buyer, there are several key steps or key places along the course of a transaction. Like, for example, when we're doing those credit incubation and score enhancement coaching sessions with buyers, when we're talking to buyers about how to enhance their credit, that's a very positive interaction, particularly when you get a buyer to the point where they've accomplished a major milestone. You know, we pull an update report and it's been 30 or 60 days and they've followed our advice in adjusting their balances on some of their credit scores, and lo and behold, their scores are 20 points higher, and we're able to then move them into the home buying process, the next stage of it. They're thrilled about it. They're excited. That's a very positive interaction. So if we talk to them about, You know, at the end of the day, Mr. Buyer, you probably realize I'm pretty passionate about getting the word out about this incredible housing opportunity right now, and I'd really love to enlist your help in getting that message out to the folks who are able to benefit but likely unaware of how much buying power they really have in today's market. The reason I know that is because, you know, if you think about the things that drive housing, the life events, I mean, just think about, like, for example, the guy who pays his bills on time has been renting the same apartment for the last couple of years, literally thousands of dollars down somebody else's toilet. I mean, $1,000 a month in rent over 5 years is $60,000. Think about what the average rental rates are in your community and how many tens of thousands of dollars are literally being flushed every single day. So I'm sure you know some people who are in a position to benefit. So let me ask you something, Mr. Buyer. Who do you know that is, for example, that guy who's that works hard, pays his bills on time, that's been renting the same place for the last couple of years? You know, another example would be the family that bought a home 2006 or 2007 when they were newlyweds and no kids, and now all of a sudden they've got 2 kids and they're busting at the seams in that little 3-bed starter home or condo that they bought back in 06 or 07. But they probably haven't moved yet because they don't think they can afford to in most cases, because they're thinking with 2006 home affordability when interest rates were north of 6%. Not realizing they may have 20 to 25% more buying power for the same payment in today's affordability. So who do you know that kind of fits that description? The family that's been in the same home for 3 or 4 years, 5 or 6 years maybe, who is at that stage. So here's the thing. These questions, and I'm kind of stepping out of role play mode for just a second to kind of share with you one last thing. If we talk to agents about our ability to mine for those opportunities, and we start focusing on how we have those strategic opportunities, because the reality is 6 or 7 times during the course of a normal loan transaction, we have those positive interactions with clients. I mean, like situations like when we actually give them their formal loan pre-approval. They're thrilled about it. When we call them to tell them their appraisal has come in a couple thousand overvalued. When we've talked to them about the score enhancement opportunities and how it's going to save them a couple $100 in closing costs and an 8% on their interest rate because their score is now a 705 instead of a 693 through the score enhancement work we've done with them. They're thrilled. I mean, the reality is every buyer knows, and again, just think about the statistics. Our buyer talks to sociologists who've done study after study over the years and realize that the average American talks to 25 to 35 people a week that they are on a first-name basis with. Okay? Out of those 25 to 35 people, 12 to 20% of them are already thinking about buying a home, which tells me that they already know and talk to weekly 5 to 7 people who are in an opportunity to benefit from this housing affordability. If we can get our buyers to introduce us to those 5 to 7 people, what's the likelihood that 1 or 2 of them don't eventually move into buying something? Now we're talking about each buyer that we work with replacing them with 1 or 2 additional buyers, which turns into 4 and then 8 and then 16, and it literally explodes from there. So as a loan officer reaching out to and communicating the value of what we're doing with these approach strategies, with these systems, with these explanations of tools that we can provide them, how much deeper and quicker can we endear ourselves to those agents and help them realize that they really can't afford not to give us a shot at every buyer they talk to, regardless of whether that buyer is pre-approved with somebody else. So with that being said, I want to go ahead and jump to the Q&A section really quick. There's been a couple of key questions that have popped in that I want to try and get some answers or response to. One of the first ones that I saw that came across that I wanted to take a quick look at is, let's see, the question came through from John, is can I elect not to have the borrower pay for the credit report with a credit card? Ben, why don't you go ahead and take a quick shot at answering that one for me while I scrub through a couple of the rest of the questions, if you don't mind.
Sure. That was one part of our design, because not all the time that people are going to set this up whether the consumer is going to pay for the credit report. So we've designed an option for discount codes that can be generated for each loan officer the company can generate overall. These discount codes can be used to allow the consumer to access their credit report for free, similar to how any of you are currently paying for your credit reports. So essentially on your bill, you'd get the bill at the end of the month. It would have that charge on it, and the consumer would receive the credit report straight up online, just like they would if they'd paid for it.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, there you go. There's the answer. Okay, so another one of the questions that came through, and Ben, I noticed that you did kind of answer this in verbal, but it's something I want to reinforce. You know, some of the questions that we'll offer in here, and this even comes from even a lot of my own personal coaching clients, which is, you know, when we talk to them about score enhancement strategies and how to help incubate leads better, one of the questions that often comes up is, well, you know, why do we need this tool versus just having the buyer go to like freecreditreport.com or annualcreditreport.com and pull copies of the credit report? Well, if you don't know, the reality is the annualcreditreport.com is not a lender's credit report, and very often the score will be different than what it would be on our lender credit report. And the advantage of what Avantus provides you here as an originator is the buyers actually get the real lending credit report. It's not a you know, a credit plus score. It's not the enhanced FICO score that they will see on the annual credit report or freecreditreport.com websites or anywhere else they would commercially pay for a copy of their tri-merge credit report. It would not be the actual lending report. In this case, they actually get the real tri-merge credit report that will actually be used for automated underwriting and lender decisioning. So those are some great questions. I know there's a bunch more. We won't necessarily have time because we are right at the top of the hour here, and there's one or two things that I want to make sure we take time to share with you all, as well as Avantus, I know, has some great special offers for you guys, and I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to catch here before we close down the webinar. But feel free to go ahead and post those questions. Continue, those of you who are online with us today, continue to go ahead and post those questions into the Q&A section. We will make sure that we follow up with both the sales side of the questions as well as with the questions regarding the Avantus tools and programs side of the questions. Go ahead and post them into the Q&A at this point, and we will make sure that our teams actually get out to you and get those follow-ups directly with you to any of those questions. So several of the questions that people have been asking, Ben, and I'm going to let you kind of go through this part of the program about how to get started with Start My Application and with the Avantus tools and some of the special offers that Avantus that you guys came up with for the group. If you wouldn't mind, can you go ahead and walk the audience through how to get started with you guys?
Sure. If you could just, there we go. So we've set up a nice little opportunity for everyone. We have, you know, if you're already a customer of ours, to get set up, it's pretty straightforward. You just go on and contact your sales rep, and they will work with you to get set up with this product. However, if you're not a client, getting set up is easy as well. There's a button on our website that says Become a Customer. Where did you hear about us? We're asking anyone that was on the seminar to put in a reference Power Up, and then you just complete the application form. It's pretty straightforward and easy to get started, and allows for a nice, easy setup. As part of that getting set up, we've also put a little offer together for this particular presentation that is a way to kind of say thank you and encourage you to get started for the spring market. So part of the startup nowadays, we have to do an on-site evaluation, which we include the cost, which is $125 to get signed up and have the on-site completed. We also have a free Start My Application website set up, so we will walk you through the entire process for getting your each loan officer and your company set up with their own individual websites that they can use to share with their leads. We also are going to provide for all people that are on this call that sign up using the Power Up reference code access to our startmyapplication.com, Credit Expert Essentials, Credit Assure, and What If Simulator, where we'll give you some professional training on all those products and show you how to use them and maximize their use. Finally, second to last is reporting cost analysis. We'll review your bills and talk through those things as well. And finally, as part of our big push for the end is in using Avantus, if you sign up through this seminar, we're giving out access to Credit Expert for free through the end of July. So essentially, if a consumer, you pull the credit report and you need to look at use the Credit Expert tools to analyze them, you can use them for free through July 31st. So it's a nice little motivation to use our system and to get signed up through this presentation.
Absolutely. And Ben, thank you for sharing that. Guys, those of you on the call, I want to reinforce one key thing here is, first of all, this is huge, okay? I mean, they're waiving the on-site evaluation that's going to be included with the startup fee. The free startmyapplication.com website, if you don't have a good front-end loan origination tool or application taker website, theirs is one of the best out there. It's one of the most user-friendly. I've walked through them myself personally, and I very much like the layout and the simplicity and user-friendliness of how their system is laid out, especially compared to some of the other competitors that are out there. I used to be an Encompass user, and the Encompass-provided websites I found to be somewhat awkward and clunky for buyers to get through. Just my personal opinion, you may have a different one, but I tell you, I love the Avantus website with the Start My Application tool. This other thing here is likely is you're getting all these bonus tools and all these additional systems and tools that are going to help you from a front-end selling point. They're going to help you get more deals, guys, and as a result, it usually is going to be very competitive with, or maybe even a little better than, your typical credit reporting cost. I mean, this is stuff you and your company are paying for already anyway, especially the credit reports that never turn into loans. I mean, that right there, I mean, how many hundreds of dollars would it save you as an originator a month, or would it save your company every single month on just that simple piece alone, having your buyers pay for their own credit report right up front without any sales manipulation or the process required? They send them to the application tool, they get a copy of their credit report, they'll pay the $20 or $27 or whatever you set up the pricing as, and it's done for you. You don't have to mess with it or worry about it. Okay, so I want to encourage all of you to take a look at it. It doesn't hurt to spend a few minutes on the phone with one of the Avantus experts, talking with them and having them review your current credit cost analysis. If you're not the decision maker in your company or the person who's responsible for writing those checks, I encourage you to have them call the Avantus folks, introduce them to these, these incredibly great team of folks that I've had the privilege and honor of getting to know over the past several months, guys like Ben and Lewis and Joe and Paul and the rest of the crew at Avantus. Reach out to them, spend some time, talk with them about what they can do to help shave your credit reporting costs substantially and have a huge impact on the bottom line for your organization. I encourage you guys, I can't encourage you more strongly to take advantage of that opportunity off this program. Okay, a couple of other things to consider. If you like some of the concepts and ideas that I've shared with you from a business development perspective and you'd like more, these are some small components of a much bigger program we call the Power Partner Development System, taught through a home study course that we have available called the Double Your Income Training Program. It is a 6-part on-demand video training program that walks you through step-by-step. It includes an extensive library of tools, materials, scripts, letter templates, emails, and all of the other power tools you need to be able to implement that Power Partner Development System, including a step-by-step action guide that uses an interactive, self-guided learning process. This video program, it's about 6.5 hours total of video that walk you through step-by-step how to implement and execute your own Power Partner Development System, which is really designed on how to make 1 and 1 equal 11 with key leveraging strategies and all the systems and tools that will help you do what I did in creating the kind of business that I did in such a short period of time. Essentially doubling your business year over year consecutively, years in a row. Converting those relationships and turning those into committed partnerships in a very short period of time. If you'd like more information about that program, you can check it out on our website, mxlcoach.com, under the Shop tab. Find out more information. Click here to get into the shopping cart. That program is available for $297 as a instant download on-demand video course. If you're interested, you just go to the web shop and you can take advantage of that Double Your Income home study course. If you'd like more information about the coaching program itself, the one-on-one coaching work that we do with clients, you're welcome to also take advantage of that. We found over the years that the best way to find out the value of coaching is to actually experience it. So as a result, we offer what we call a strategy session. It is a no-cost, no-obligation sample coaching session that you'll have with one of our coaches in a one-on-one environment to talk through and get solutions to one of your bigger challenges that you'll select to talk about. And as a result, you'll find out a little bit more about the coaching program. You and the coach will decide if and when it makes sense for you to potentially move forward with some coaching and what that next step would look like for you. If you'd like to take advantage of that strategy session offer, you're welcome to go ahead and post your best phone number and email address in the Q&A section of the webinar platform so that our team can get a hold of you for scheduling. Or you can simply go to the website, mxocoach.com/strategy, and sign up with the best information to get a hold of you for that purpose. Otherwise, the last thing that I want to share with all of you before you leave today, you've all invested an hour of your time at this point, plus a little in some cases, to get the ideas, guidance, and training from what we've talked about today. Don't waste that time. Ideas that don't get implemented are totally useless to you. So if you've taken the initiative, that you've invested an hour of your valuable time to come to this program today, don't leave here until you take one final step to put some of these ideas in action. So here's what I want you to do. Think about, just take the next 30 seconds to a minute before you answer the next email, before you return the next phone call or pick up your voicemails. Ask yourself these couple of quick questions. One, what was the most valuable thing you heard in this program? Only one. Pick the best idea you've heard today. You can always get the video later. Like I said, our team will be rendering a copy of this recording along with the PowerPoint and sending that out to you. Usually it takes a couple of days to get that done because there's several hours of work behind the scenes that have to be taken to make it happen. But take just a few minutes for yourself. Decide what was the most valuable idea that you want to implement from today's program. Second is decide what is the next action you need to take to make that idea part of what you do in your daily business. Third is decide by when you'll have that action implemented. Set a specific target date for completion of implementing that one key idea, taking that one action step. And fourth, decide who's going to hold you accountable. I mean, at the end of the day, it's kind of the running buddy concept. Imagine I want to lose some weight. I decide I'm going to start an exercise program as a New Year's resolution. You know, I go out January 2nd, not January 1st. We all know what we're doing January 1st. But January 2nd, I go out and maybe I overdo it a little bit. I jog farther than I really probably should have. January 3rd, I don't go as far because I'm sore and tired from January 2nd. January 4th rolls around. I barely make it around the block. January 5th, it's cold and it's wet and it's nasty outside, and I really don't feel like jogging because every bone in my body aches. And so I hit the snooze button and roll back over, go to sleep. How different would that be, though, if, let's say, I was talking to a buddy at the neighborhood New Year's Eve party, and he said, you know, that's a great idea. Maybe we should go do that jogging thing together. I could use to lose some weight, too. So January 5th rolls around. It's still cold, wet, and nasty outside, and I still ache. Every muscle in my body is crying out because I overdid it the first couple of days. But I know my buddy's going to be on my doorstep at 5:30 to go jogging. So likelihood is I get up and go. It's so easy to break the promises we make to ourselves. It's so much more difficult to break the promises we make to other people. So find out who that accountability partner is going to be. Decide who you're going to tell what you're going to do. Ask them to follow up with you on that specific date. You do those two things, and you'll have a 95% chance of following through on the actions. So that being said, guys, I apologize for some of the minor technical difficulties we've had today. I'm going to be having a serious conversation with our host service provider, GoToWebinar, about what was going on with that and trying to see if we can figure that out, because it's rare that that has happened. But the other thing that we can do here, guys, is I want you to all encourage you and applaud yourselves for investing the time that you have today. It's been great to have the opportunity to share with you. There's more I wish I could, but just not enough to be time in the hour time slot that we have together. So hopefully we have an opportunity to get together in the near future. Continue to watch the emails and watch the follow-up materials. If you'd like more information about upcoming programs, you're always welcome to check out our website, as well as check out what Avantus has going on. They've got some pretty cool things that I know they're going to be working on behind the scenes that I'll be excited to see as they grow and evolve. Otherwise, guys, I wish you all the greatest of success. If there's anything my team or the team at Avantus can do to help you improve or refine your skill or ability to help you get to the next level faster in your business development and in the production and the mortgage, in the growth of your mortgage practice, please don't hesitate to ask. With that in mind, we are going to be hanging out for just a few more minutes, and I'll have the opportunity to allow you to, I'm going to go ahead and shut